truly great pleasure it is to welcome the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, to Milwaukee. Now, I've kind of lost track. I don't know if this is the second, third, fourth, fifth time she's been here. You get the picture. The Vice President is no stranger to Milwaukee. In fact, she's no stranger to the state of Wisconsin. She's got roots here. She also brings both understanding of and appreciation for the concerns that we have as residents, not just of this city, but as residents of this state. The Vice President understands us and is working hard to make lives better for all the people who live right here in the state of Wisconsin. Let's be clear. The administration of President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris has gone to great lengths to invest, to build, and to reshape the relationship that Wisconsin residents have with the federal government. Yes, they have. Yes, they have. And the results, quite frankly, are really, really impressive. I mean, look at this. Unemployment is low and opportunity is high, thanks to President Joe Biden and thanks to Vice President Kamala Harris. Wages are up and inflation is coming down, thanks to President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. And I tell you this as well. The Biden-Harris administration directives are positively improving things right here in our city, right here in our own community, right here in Milwaukee. We're looking at the future, and the Vice President is also looking towards the future. And I've got enormous confidence that if we stay the course with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, that more good things are ahead for Milwaukee and more good things are ahead for us right here in the state of Wisconsin. They are. And I often, you know this, speak about partnerships and the power of partnerships and bringing people together. That's the best approach to accomplish our goals. And the Vice President of the United States, she's a true partner. She really, really is. Vice President Kamala Harris is a true partner to us, a true partner to Milwaukee, a true partner to Wisconsin. And I look forward to continuing the work that's already underway. Thank you so much. Let's hear it for Vice President Kamala Harris. Thank you.
Please welcome County Executive David Crowley.
How everybody doing? Woo, what a great day to be at Discovery World, y'all. And a great day to welcome back our Madam Vice President Kamala Harris. Now, many of you may have noticed that not only President Biden, but Vice President Kamala Harris and their administration, they've paid a couple visits back to Milwaukee County. And they understand how important the Badger State is. And that's because President Biden and Vice President Harris have an important story to tell all Milwaukee County residents as well as our families. And I think everybody in this room understands that the evidence is extremely clear. By working through our partners like Senator Tammy Baldwin, like Congresswoman Gwen Moore, the Biden-Harris administration has been building the economic opportunities and creating union jobs for Wisconsin workers. The Biden-Harris administration is supporting safer, healthier, and prosperous neighborhoods every single day, and they're delivering historic investments, not just for Milwaukee, but for the American people. The Biden-Harris administration, they have been creating positive, long-lasting change, not just for Milwaukee County, but for everyone through the efforts like the American Rescue Plan Act. They've been doing it through investments like the bipartisan infrastructure law and through the reforms like the Inflation Reduction Act. But you don't have to look too far than in your own neighborhoods where you are seeing affordable housing being built by Milwaukee County, where you see us reconnecting communities that were historically divided by urban renewal and interstate development. And we're also ensuring that Black and Brown owned small businesses have the tools that they need to succeed. And you know what? We're doing it together, and we're doing it today. And why we're here is to make sure that we're highlighting the Biden-Harris administration's work and all that they're doing to help move our community forward. Under this administration, we have witnessed the fastest growth of Black-owned small businesses in more than 30 years. Absolutely. We're seeing the investments in education. We're seeing the investments in economic development and in childcare. And you know what? They're beginning to deliver real results for the people that we serve. And you know what? We're just getting started, y'all. We are just getting started because what's good for Milwaukee County is good for the entire state of Wisconsin. And you know who understands that? Our Madam Vice President. Vice President Kamala Harris understands that. But the bottom line is this: Milwaukee County is becoming stronger thanks to the Biden-Harris administration. And we're going to keep partnering with President Biden and the Madam VP to make sure that we continue to enhance the quality of life for the people of Milwaukee County. Because together we can build on our progress. We will continue fighting the good fight while making sure that we lead the way forward. And together with Madam Vice President Kamala Harris by our side, I know that we can and that we will envision a much stronger, a much brighter, and a much healthier future for all of us in the state of Wisconsin and in America. God bless you all, and thank you for this opportunity.
Please welcome U.S. Department of Treasury Deputy Secretary Wally Adeyemo.
How we doing, Milwaukee? Oh, you can do better than that. How we doing, Milwaukee? It is so good to be here with you today and to be here with two great leaders, one you're going to hear from right after me, who is the Acting Secretary, Adrian Taubman, and Vice President Kamala Harris. That deserves a round of applause. And the Vice President's here again because we want to talk about what's happening here in Milwaukee, and amazing things are happening here in Milwaukee. And it's important for us to remember where we've come from in order to understand where we're going. And when the pandemic hit, as you all know better than I do, Milwaukee was hit hard. 14% unemployment, but 17% unemployment in the Black community. 5 people in Milwaukee died each day from COVID. And we know that disproportionately impacted the Black community. But over the past few years, the American economy and Milwaukee have made a comeback. And the Vice President says this all the time. The reason we've made that comeback is because of you, because of the grit and determination of the people who live in this community, who have helped bring the American economy back and help bring Milwaukee back. And I like to say, not only because it's true, frankly, that Black women have been at the core of that recovery. More Black women today work in America than before the pandemic. We are leading the economic recovery. Black incomes up 7% after inflation. Black small business growth doubled over the last 3 years in this country. People fail to realize this, but Black small businesses employ more than 1 million Americans and have a payroll of over $1 billion. That's Black America helping to make the economy better for all Americans. And we know the economy is better for that. Deserves a round of applause. And 18,000 people right here in Milwaukee County have started a business this last year. That's 50 people. Yes, that's you. Those of you who took that side hustle and turned it into a small business, those of you who are right now building a small business that employs 1 person, but next year will employ 9 people, 18,000 people here in Milwaukee have done that just last year, and we expect that to happen more. But when I talk to small business owners all over the country, including here in Milwaukee, the thing that they say is that we need someone to invest in my dream. And one of the things the Vice President has been focused on, one of the things she's pushed since she was a senator, is making sure that we put money into community development financial institutions, into Black-owned banks that are going to invest in this community. And we've put $200 million into financial institutions that are owned in communities like Milwaukee that are intended to get into the hands of small businesses like the ones that you are starting, the ones that you are dreaming about, the ones that you want to create in order to make sure that we're able to build up this community. And the Vice President fought hard to make sure that that money got passed by Congress when she was a senator. And today she's here to talk about the ways in which our administration is making sure that that money is getting into the hands of the small businesses that are here. But in addition to that $200 million, we know that people need customers as well. These small businesses don't only need capital, but they need customers. And a big part of what we're doing through our bills is making sure that through bills like the Inflation Reduction Act and the Infrastructure Act is making sure that small businesses like the ones that you're starting are eligible to get access to that money going forward. Today, I hope that you go over to the fair that's next door, because some of those banks, those institutions that we've given money to are over there next door. And their goal is to make sure that they take the time to invest in your dream, to take the time to help you think about how you make your dreams possible, how we build housing in your communities, how we build small businesses, how we make sure that your communities become places that can thrive going forward. And the reality is that this community has no greater champion than the Vice President of the United States, who cares deeply about not just making sure that the money flows from Washington, but that money gets into the hands of communities here in Milwaukee so that Black America can do what you have done already since the pandemic, which is help grow the entire U.S. economy. So I'm happy to be here in Milwaukee because we see growth here in this economy. I'm happy to be here in Milwaukee because Milwaukee is not only leading the state of Wisconsin, but you're helping to lead the country. And the Treasury Department and the Vice President of the United States and the President, we're all proud to be your partners in doing that. So thank you so much for having me.
Please welcome U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Acting Secretary Adrian Todman.
Whoa, that was a long walk, everybody. Got my steps in. It is great to be here in Milwaukee this afternoon. And it's great to be here with my friend and colleague, Deputy Secretary you just heard from. His department and my department work closely every single day to build more affordable housing for folks here in Milwaukee and across the country. You know, I have been working in the housing business now for a very, very long time. And I've seen administrations come and go. And a lot of them talk a lot about housing. They talk about affordable housing and access to homeownership. But I will say this, and one of the reasons I'm proud to be with this president, this vice president, is we're not just talking the talk. We've been walking the walk for the last 3 years. And I want to, that's right. And I want to thank our Madam Vice President for everything that she has done to ensure that there's economic opportunities for all and folks here in Milwaukee. Thank you. Thank you so much for the work that you have done, Madam Vice President, to help access to homeownership. What does that mean? That means that the first-time homebuyer rate under the Biden-Harris administration is the highest it has been in 20 years. Let me say that again. The first-time homebuyer rate under the Biden-Harris administration is the highest that it has been in 20 years. And that didn't come from hopes and dreams, good people. That came from leadership. Look, there's some 2.5 million people have become first-time homebuyers under this administration. And it was just a little over a year ago that Madam Vice President announced a cut to some of our homeownership fees. And that cut in 1 year has helped over 600,000 people across the country save nearly $600 million in mortgage payments. Now that's worth an applause. And we know what homeownership means. We know that it changes people's lives for generations to come. But you know what? We need to help folks even more. You know that. We want to make sure that even more folks are able to purchase a home who have an opportunity to do so. And that is why our vice president is here today. It's why we are here today and why we have housing counselors who are here today as well. The housing counselors in many ways are the unsung heroes of the home buying journey. For a lot of people, working with a housing counselor is the very reason that they were able to make their dreams come true. There's so many of us who may not have had parents and grandparents and others to help down that homeownership journey. But we know that our housing counselors get the job done. They help people build their credit. They help folks save their money. They help folks access our programs across the federal government and at HUD to meet their unique needs. And they ultimately help people buy, and let me add, keep their homes. And we want homes that people can feel comfortable in. Well, I'll applaud to keep you home. We want to make sure that every American family can have a home that they feel comfortable in. And as an administration, as an agency, we support these services, and they're helpful, particularly for what I mentioned, first-generation homeowners that don't know what that first step looks like. Look, I know and you know that owning a home instills a sense of pride, a sense of community. Homeownership makes our neighborhoods stronger and allows generations of children to thrive. But a lot of people feel like homeownership is out of reach. We're just talking to one of the housing counselors who said many people don't even know that their credit scores are high enough that they can access homeownership. We make sure people have the information they need. Look, Black and brown people have faced historical disadvantages when it comes to buying a home. I know I don't have to tell this audience that. And it's one of the reasons why this administration has been so focused in making sure that our services are getting to the people who need it the most. And we're here today because we want even more people to have an opportunity to be housing secure. We want even more people to be able to put roots down and start building generational wealth. Because that is what it looks like to invest in America. That's what it looks like, family by family. There is no better way to invest in our country than to invest in the places we live, especially when those investments mean that our children and our children's children will have an opportunity to live, to grow, and to achieve. I want to thank our fabulous Madam Vice President for her leadership. She is an awesome, brilliant lady. I am proud to call her a boss, and thank you all for having us today in this great city. Thank you.
Please welcome JCP Construction President James Phelps.
How's everybody doing today? Awesome. For those who don't know or have not had the privilege of meeting, my name is James Phelps, president of JCP Construction. We are a family-owned business that's been around for about 15 years, about 50 employees, both professionals as well as family-supporting union jobs. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank my lovely wife, Morgan, brothers James, Jalen, and Cliff, and sister Carrie, who are all acutely know and aware of the challenges that we are here today to discuss. Today, we are honored to have and talk with a distinguished leader, business trailblazer, and champion of change, the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris. Under the leadership of President Biden and Vice President Harris, the administration has made a priority to support and uplift communities that have been historically marginalized, including Black-owned businesses. To share a few examples, we can look at the American Rescue Plan, to the Inflation Reduction Act, and bipartisan infrastructure law, and more. But perhaps most importantly, they understand that true progress cannot be achieved without addressing the systematic inequalities that has held us back for far too long. I like to call this the economics of equality. It's about creating pathways to ensure that every entrepreneur, regardless of their background or zip code, has the resources and support needed to be successful. We're not looking for handouts, we're looking for hand-ups to level the playing field that have been stacked up against us for far too long. Yeah, we can clap to that, shit. Now, please welcome comedian, actor, author, radio host, and steak connoisseur, DL Hughley.
I should have got louder than the politician. Damn.
All right. Today, we are also joined by someone who understands that this work we are all about, excuse me, say that again. Someone who understands that this work we all are about because she has been fighting and delivering for people her entire career. Vice President Harris, we are eager to hear your words of insight, your vision, and your commitment to advancing the cause of Black businesses and ensuring everyone has the opportunity to be successful. So with that, I'd like to introduce a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, HBCU grad, and most importantly, the first woman to be elected Vice President of the United States of America, Kamala Harris.
Good afternoon, I think it is now. Please, everyone, have a seat. Rufus King, high school band. What? You all are killing it. Oh, you're so good. You're so good. Thank you all. Oh, when I look at our young leaders, I know the future of our country is so bright. Thank you all very much for being a part of today.
I'm glad to be here with you, Madam Vice President. I love Wisconsin. I'm glad to be here when it's not freezing. So we have a lot of incredible leaders here. First off, we'd like to acknowledge, thank you, James Phelps, who did that introduction where nobody clapped for me. I appreciate that. That's great. We have Deputy Secretary Wadi Adeyemo. Is he here? Is he here? Stand up. Stand up. You can stand up. We have Acting Secretary Adrienne Todman. Is she here? Stand up. Hey, let's do this. Why don't y'all stay standing until we finish? Just stand up. It's not a raid, I promise you. Ain't nothing gonna happen. We have Secretary of State Sarah Godlowski. Is she here?
She was here earlier.
There you go.
There she is.
We have County Executive David Crawley. Is he here? There you go. Mayor Cavalier Johnson, with a cool ass name that is. That's dope. And of course, Senator Tammy Baldwin is here. That's wonderful. It is so nice to be here with elected officials that are not under indictment. I tell you, I swear to God, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. You know, I've always been a huge fan of yours. You were my senator from California. I've been very proud of what you're doing. And to me, this is an extension of what you did in California. I'm very proud of the work you're doing. But this is the third stop of your National Economic Opportunity Tour. Yes. Why did you decide to launch the tour, and how's it going so far?
So first of all, thank you, DL, for being here. And your voice is so important. You always take on the issue of the day. You give us humor and laughter, but you always talk about serious issues in such a thoughtful way. So thank you for being on the stage.
My pleasure.
With me. Can we hear it for DL, please? Are the cues in the house?
Don't get nervous, white people. It's never, I promise you. It's not. Ain't nobody. It ain't nobody attacking the village about this, right? But this is very important, and I know from a very lengthy conversation.
Yes.
Not only how important it is the work you've done, but to let people know about it.
That's right.
What's available.
That's right. So as you and I have talked about, first of all, we all know that we are a nation that was empowered and continues to be empowered by the aspirations and the ambitions of her people. And we also know that we don't lack for talent. We don't lack for skills. We don't lack for good ideas and innovative thought. But there are those who, with all of that, lack for access to either information or relationships that allow them to then translate all of those skills into something that will actually be real and, by extension, benefit the whole and entire community and society. So I decided to embark on this economic opportunity tour to travel the country and share with folks what resources are available, and resources that are not just about helping folks get by, but get ahead. We know that we all want an opportunity, if that is our life's calling or ambition, to be able not just to have a job, but to create wealth, intergenerational wealth, to contribute to the economy of the neighborhood, of the place where you live, and by extension, our country and the world. Right. And so this tour is designed to get that information, because we are doing extraordinary work. I mean, I look at Mr. Phelps, who introduced you and I, his construction company. I was talking to him earlier. He has about 100 employees, and or 50 employees, but, or actually, where is he? There you are. How many employees as of now? 50 employees. And I was sharing with Mr. Phelps that we, the president and I, because of the Inflation Reduction Act, the Infrastructure Act, we are dropping trillions of dollars on the streets of America right now to build back up our roads and our bridges, our sidewalks, to invest in a clean energy economy, to deal with the climate crisis in a way that is about building up adaptation and resilience. Well, a business like Mr. Phelps's business is going to make what we plan to do out of Washington, D.C. real on the streets of America. And here's the thing about why I'm focused on small businesses. One of the reasons is that, do you know that over 90% of construction companies in America have 20 or fewer employees? They're small businesses doing extraordinary work. When you see the signs around Milwaukee and around our country brought to you by the Biden-Harris administration, and you see a crane and you see shovels in the ground, it's going to be with and in partnership with our brothers and sisters of labor, IBEW, who's doing the great apprenticeship work, and it's going to be businesses like Mr. Phelps who are doing that work. So we want them to know what is available to them.
You said something earlier, because I think communally we understand we were raised to work really hard and things would happen. Like a lot of us were told we had to work twice as hard to get half as far. But it isn't just about hard work. It is what you alluded to earlier, access, information.
That's right.
And so that makes me proud. All you can say about somebody is that when you're climbing, you can recognize them when they get to the top. And I can say that's true of you. That's something that makes me very proud. You are doing those things to expand access. And we talked about that. But the homeowner aspect, that is a chip in the game. That's a big chip in the game.
That's right.
That is access to capital. That is sending kids to college. That is taking a vacation.
That's right.
But for us, the path is a little curvier than for a lot of people.
That's right.
And what are you doing to mitigate some of those things?
So part of how I'm thinking of this economic opportunity tour in general is to acknowledge, speak truth, and acknowledge both the opportunities that exist, but also the disparities and the obstacles that exist.
Right.
So let's talk about Black home ownership. Without spending too much time on a history lesson, first of all, nobody got 40 acres and a mule.
Right.
Then you look at, for example, and I'll jump around, what happened with a federal policy initiative that said about the greatest generation, those who fought in the wars that established America's leadership on a global scale. Let's invest in that greatest generation when they come back. And there were substantial federal dollars through grants that then went to those mostly servicemen who are then veterans coming back. So when there was this incredible boost around home ownership, let's invest in their ability to buy homes. Incredible boost. However, the Black servicemen did not get full advantage of those loans. So the discrimination occurred there. So where there was a boost, some got ahead and some just didn't get the benefit of it. You look at it in terms of what we know around segregation. You look at it in terms of redlining. And then most recently, an obstacle that we have been addressing and speaking truth about is racial bias in home appraisals, which is very real. So in an environment where Black families are 40% less likely to own homes, we also have, among those who do own a home, so many examples, and DL, you can tell the story of how racial bias has undervalued a Black homeowner's home in such a way that if they rely on that biased appraisal, they will receive less value for their property. If they're trying to sell it or they're trying to get a second mortgage,
it's so ironic you bring that up. It's so ironic.
So tell us, you want to tell your story?
I bought a house in West Hills. I had only lived around Black people my whole life.
Yeah.
I bought a house in West Hills, California, which is the basis of the television show I did called The Hughleys. I go to sell that house because my wife said we had to move. We'd owned that house for a couple of years. We'd done all these improvements. My real estate broker said, well, you gotta take your pictures down and take down, the jet mag, to take down anything that let them know who lives here. And of course, I was like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. They came and the appraisal came in so low, the bank contacted us, and it would have had to been a home in disrepair. The home that's on TV, like I'm on TV with this home.
Right.
They sent another appraiser out and they gave me $200,000 more. And it was interesting to me. I'm like, the fact that I actually wrote this in my book and we talk about it on my show all the time. This happens to Black people consistently.
Yes.
Well, we have to, now I just keep actual pictures of white people in my house, just in case. You ain't gonna get me twice. I keep them in my wallet too, just in case the police. I'm just telling you, this is just me. But these kinds of things, these microaggressions are things that I've been around a lot of administrations. I don't know that anybody has done it as succinctly as you all have.
And because we need to just call it what it is, right? And then deal with it. And so how we're dealing with it is, one, to tell the truth about it, because there are countless stories of a Black family doing just that, actually, of of then talking with a friend who is white and asking them to put in their family pictures
Right.
and to bring the appraiser in, and a substantial difference around how the home is appraised. So we just need to deal with it, knowing that, for example, one of the problems here is that a very small minority of home appraisers are people of color. And because this is about people of color to Black people and other people of color. And so we need to deal with it on that level. The other piece of it is that we are now requiring that home appraisers be trained on racial bias. And we have set up basically a report line to let people know there is somewhere to go with this information. Because too often, right, too often, people who are the focus of unfairness know it's unfair, right? You don't need to be taught that it's unfair, but sometimes just feel like there's nowhere to go with this. I'm just gonna have to accept it. And this is unacceptable. And so we have set up a system to make it so that there is somewhere to go with this information.
We were speaking about expansion of wealth and those opportunities and home ownership, but a big impediment to that also is debt.
Huge issue.
And I think it's something I hear on my radio show all the time.
Yeah.
Crushing debt. Student loans are a big part of that.
That's right.
Thank God I have a GED, so that didn't cost a lot. So while y'all were studying, I was keeping all my money. But it is such a crushing thing to start out with a debt that it's going to be hard to pay. Even the interest on that debt is going to be almost impossible. What have you done to kind of deal with that reality for so many people of color?
That's right. So let's start with one of, there are two areas in particular where we're dealing with in terms of the burden of debt, which so many people carry, such a burden. So one is medical debt. So a lot of people experience medical debt, usually born out of a medical emergency. And so it's something you obviously then don't plan for. It is something that happens. And then people have these hospital bills, these doctor's bills that can be in the tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars for an unexpected emergency. So we have decided that, well, look, it's not like that medical emergency happened because you're financially irresponsible. That's a healthcare matter.
Right.
So we are now saying medical debt cannot be included in your credit score. Right? Because after all, your credit, well, first of all, everybody these days knows their credit score, like you know how much you weigh, right? You can get a little app and look at it. Some people look at it on a daily basis. And
check mine, Lou. Check my credit score right now.
And we know what that number means in terms of your ability to qualify for a small business loan, a home loan, a credit card, a car loan. So we are saying that cannot be included. The other thing that we have said about medical debt is that it cannot work against you when you are applying for credit. And again, it's just what's morally right from our perspective, which is people shouldn't be debilitated around having access to economic opportunity because they experienced a medical emergency or something of that nature.
Which is why I'm here. Because I remember growing up, my mother would go to the hospital a lot.
Yeah.
And the debt was so bad, she put everything in our name. Like I had a electric bill when I was 3.
Right.
But I'm not even trying, these are the things that they had to do to kind of navigate this space.
I know.
And to hear someone actually address the concerns that are real and that through no fault of your own exist. And I just think when you talk about the medical space, you said something that made me, in addition to all the things I've thought that you've done, when you talk about the disparity of treatment of women of color.
Yes.
My daughter she had my second grandchild. She was, we were ecstatic, and then she got diagnosed with breast cancer. Mm-hmm. And had she not, and women in certain regions of this country, their health outcomes are just disparate depending on what area of the country they live in, what kind of access they have to.
That's right.
And the fact that because she's married to a doctor and we were, fortunate to be able to get her what she needed, it is working out for us. But I know so many people in her journey that I heard about that didn't. And the fact that you addressed that and have done, you and your administration have taken steps to make sure that not only is heard, but addressed. That's something I've heard you talk about a lot too.
Well, and you're right. I mean, we could have a long conversation this afternoon about health disparities and the intersection between that and racial disparities. I mean, maternal mortality is something I've been working on for years. Black women are 3 times more likely to be diagnosed, well, to actually die in connection with pregnancy. Native women, twice as likely. Rural women, 1.5 times more likely. And when you look into the reasons, yes, it is about availability of affordable care. It is also about racial bias.
Sure.
And so that is something I've been working on for years. In fact, most recently, I'll tell you, I know it's not on the Economic Opportunity Tour, but I'm going to connect it. When I became vice president, as a continuation of this work, I took a look at which states had extended coverage for women on Medicaid for postpartum care from 2 months to 12 months. So I took a look at this. So women on Medicaid, only 3 states had extended it to 12 months. So I'm not above shaming folks.
Right.
So I issued a challenge to the states, extend coverage for women on Medicaid to 12 months. And as of today, 46 states have done it.
Yeah.
Right? And these connections are very real in terms of economic health and well-being and issues like access to affordable
Sure.
healthcare. The other thing I just don't want to overlook is the student loan debt piece. And also, DL, you know, we've talked about this. The things that we have achieved have not been without great opposition.
Right.
Right. So student loan debt, you all may remember, we actually had a much more ambitious plan, but there were forces working against that.
Sure.
So then the president said, well, I'm going to go and do it on my own to the extent I can without Congress or without the courts supporting this. And so we have now forgiven over $150 billion of student loan debt for over 4 million Americans. And one of the pieces that is particularly important for me, because my first grade teacher, Mrs. Frances Wilson, God rest her soul, attended my law school graduation, and I love our teachers. We made, as part of the student loan forgiveness plan, that public servants, so nurses, firefighters, teachers, would get double the amount of debt forgiveness, because God knows we don't pay them enough as it is, and they have dedicated their lives to service. And again, it's what's smart, but it's also just what's right.
It's fair.
It's just fair.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think that it is a shame that we live in a society that separates people like that, where women aren't making with it. You know, I want women to get all the money that they deserve and then give us our change back. That's what I want. I want that to start happening. So you could do that too.
Let me just say, I have talked to DL's wife, and she is so strong and funny and smart. And I'm just gonna say that you are lucky that you are married to her.
Yes. Yes. Did she call you or something? Something happened? You know, I am here specifically because I remember when we had a conversation at the dinner we had, and it was not always, it got contentious, and I had to apologize to you because I had let a media narrative co-opt my perspective. And I think that tends to happen with women and people of color. I think that we oftentimes hear this call, this sirens call that is so it's so mesmerizing that sometimes you believe it. And I had to apologize to you because you were a prosecutor. I grew up in California. I love that state. And what I saw happen to it, I equated it with, you know, elected officials, and I lumped you in with it. But some of the things that I have subsequently come to learn about you not only make me proud of you, but make me be an advocate for you. I'm proud of the things you've done. I'm proud of what you're trying to do for this country. This administration is trying to do for this country. And I can say in front of them, I'm sorry that I ever let somebody tell me what I should have known from the beginning. And I'll use my voice not as I'm not a paid, but I don't even like politics all that much. It's ironic to me. Right. But I think you have done what you said you would do. And there was a time that I didn't believe it. And I have to say that I'm sorry. And I'm going to do what I have to do to make sure you get the word out and make sure that people understand you have done everything you've promised, and I am proud of you. So,
Oh, dear. Thank you.
there you go. Wait till everybody else jumps in. All right, come on now. No rhythm.
So-
This is-
One of the other things, first of all, thank you, DL.
You're very
Thank you. That means so much more than I can say. I do want to mention one of the many other things we're doing that, again, to your point, is about acknowledging the disparities. Federal contracts. So for how many small business owners do we have here today? Okay, right. Right. So a lot of federal contracts go to small businesses. But what we know is often who even has the information about how to apply for a federal contract is a matter of who you know. Not necessarily the skill of your work, how well you do your work. Certainly, has nothing to do with anything other than often just a lack of information and access to those relationships. So from day one, when the president and I came in, we said we are going to increase by 50% federal contracts going to minority-owned businesses. And we are on track to get that done by the end of next year. And I mention that to say that the work that we have been doing is about creating incentives for folks to apply, but also holding the federal government to account for measuring how we are doing this work and being intentional about it. And I think that's so very important. And that's where, look, who's in the position of power matters. Because one, if you don't even have any level of awareness or interest in these disparities, you're not going to get anything done on them. And then when you become aware, if you actually intend to get something done, you have to hold yourself and the system to account. And I will say that is part of the method of our approach to a lot of this work. Our work includes, for example, like let's have metrics. Let's say, for example, we know the history of Black homeownership. We know the history of bias and laws that prevented equal access to that opportunity. We have now proposed that if you are the child of parents who, or you were raised in a family where the folks who raised you were not homeowners, when you want to go buy a home, you will be entitled to a $25,000 grant toward down payment for a home. Again, acknowledging the realities of it all. If your parents owned a home and then you as their child say, I want to go buy, then your parents will likely have the opportunity and ability to say, honey, you don't have to go take out that big loan. I'm going to take some equity out of my home to help you with that down payment. And that's how intergenerational wealth works. But if you start with nothing, how are we going to give people those opportunities? And so it's about acknowledgement and then pushing through the actual policies that are not just about lip service, but actually making a difference.
You seem to be having and hearing you talk, you have a different approach. I think that there are people who think that the top down works best. There are people who believe that you can build a house with the roof first. There are people,
right?
They do, they believe that. And any construction man can tell you that ain't possible. And there are people who believe that because when you're talking consistently about the small business owners and people being entrepreneurial, those are ground up, those are foundational kind of things. And it really does depend on your life's experiences, how you view things, and in terms of the way that you lead. So tell me a little bit about why you see things that way, because this politics is, if it's nothing else, it also is transactional too. So why do you see the approach of top of from the foundation up being the best approach to taking America even into the next centuries and decades?
So in particular, my focus on small businesses, which extends back to my years in the Senate when I was a part of getting $12 billion more into our community banks, and I know we have many community lenders who are here, is because those lenders are in the community. They know the resources, they know the capacity, they know the desires of the community, and can also then assist and support getting people information around things like financial literacy. In fact, one of the announcements we're making today is putting hundreds of millions more dollars into advisors and consultants here in Milwaukee, for example, over a dozen that will, for free, give people financial literacy information, how to apply for loans. Community banks give information about to a small business. This is how you run a payroll. This is how you deal with your business taxes. I was talking with one of the CDFIs earlier who has a booth here. There are many booths, so I encourage everyone to go and stop by them. There's a lot of information. Who was telling a young man who's a small business owner, you know, there's a difference between a bookkeeper and an accountant. And you need to know the difference, because you got to, you know, keep all that straight, but then also so you can actually create a business model out of what you are doing now that would allow you access to growth.
Yeah.
But a lot of my focus on small businesses then, it is because small businesses employ over half of America's working population. But also, when I grew up, I had my mother who raised us and a second mother, Miss Shelton, who we lived in the apartment above the nursery school that she owned and ran. And she was the second mother. When my mother was working late, she would take care of us in the evenings and sometimes on the weekends. And Miss Shelton ran this nursery school, and it was a small business. And, you know, she was from Louisiana, but part of that exodus of folks
Everybody
that
from
moved
Louisiana,
to
Texas,
California,
for California.
right?
Yep.
And she was not only a small business owner and leader, but she was a civic leader. She was a matriarch of the community. She counseled young parents. She hired locally. She mentored. And that's who our small business leaders are. And so when I think about it, it is about investing in America's prosperity and a broad-based economy, but it's also about investing in communities and the civic fabric of communities that contributes to the economic health and well-being. And that's where my passion comes from and why I do this part of the work that I do.
Hearing you talk, one of the things that I consistently hear you say is information.
Yeah.
And one of the things people of color would deny was information.
Yes.
We don't want you to know anything. Do it.
And there's so much misinformation.
And because I remember when we grew up, this is all the men I knew would have newspapers everywhere.
Yeah.
They would read it. Like
Yes.
it was in your cupboards and you wrapped your glasses in it. Information was everywhere. Like you could get a good whooping for messing with the paper before your daddy finished it. You can mess with them funny papers. Don't do nothing else.
Right.
Information was important to us.
Yeah,
and I
that's
think
true.
that there are people
That's true.
who want to deny us access to information because of the power it unleashes. Some of these things have existed, but just even highlighting them in a way that makes it more accessible to people, that make it more reasonable, more attainable to people. And so having a conversation that not only talks about what you have done, but the pathway to showing people what is available to them just from accessing things. And I think that's an important approach. I know you have to go, but
Well, let me just add something to your point. We'll be here all afternoon. We won't be though. This is what is frankly facetious and wrong about the bootstrap theory.
Yeah.
Right? Just pick yourself up. If you want to do better, you would do better. It must be some sign of your character.
Yep.
And a flaw in your character that you're not doing as well as I am doing. Instead of understanding that not everyone has access to the information, but when they do have access, then there's no, as I said earlier, no lack of ambition, aspiration, good ideas, work ethic. There's no lack of any of that.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm doing this tour. Because we are now dropping trillions of dollars on the streets of America. Joe Biden and me and our administration, many of the leaders who you just met. And I want to make sure that everyone who needs to know how to be a part of this actually has the information to be able to then
You
do the work.
I'm proud. Like I remember when you were talking about the infrastructure, and you were talking about the Department of Transportation.
Yeah.
Well, like I remember Sugar Hill was in California.
Yeah.
They started the 10 freeway in a black neighborhood that had already pulled itself by
That's
bootstraps.
right.
See, a lot of times they'll have a conversation with us after you've taken our boots, then you say we never had any. But the Department of Transportation built deliberately through neighborhoods of color. And the fact that
they called
you
it urban planning.
They call it urban planning.
Those freeways cutting through neighborhoods
on purpose,
all over the country.
And if you know the history of that, and find an administration that is dealing with it and to the best they can, like whole neighborhoods. In Dallas, a neighborhood, the wealthiest neighborhood, was owned by a black man named Bob Jones. They took it with the Army Corps of Engineers and the city planners. So the fact that
renewal, they used to call it urban renewal.
Yeah. The fact that through your administration and through the infrastructure bill that you guys passed, you are finding ways to it's certainly not reparations, but it is a level of restorative justice where you say, we did this, we're going to try to do this to undercut some of the damage we've done. That's important too.
Well, we want to be intentional, but to your point, for example, it's something else that we've done. The rule has been for a very long time that previously incarcerated people cannot be eligible for small business administration loans. We have now gotten rid of that. So now the fact that someone was previously incarcerated will not render them ineligible for a small business loan. Because here's the thing. We believe in second chances. I believe in redemption and the ability of all people to be able to come back, and we need to give them the ability and opportunity to do it. Here's another thing that's very important, and I ask all the leaders here to help us get this information out, which is why we have invited the leaders who are here. You are business leaders, you are opinion leaders. Please help us get the word out. That's part of why I am doing that and have asked you all to join us. So on the student loan debt, let's think about this. The inability to be able to pay tuition is why people take out loans, okay? So then logically, that also tells us some people who can't afford tuition drop out because they can't afford tuition, but they still have debt. Our policy on student loan debt forgiveness includes people who never graduated being eligible for that forgiveness. Help us get the word out. Because a lot of people are assuming that they're only qualified for student debt forgiveness if they graduated. And again, we know statistically, whether it be small business loans or other things that are available to folks, when you've experienced life in such a way that you've had countless disappointments, sometimes folks are reluctant then to put themselves out there to apply for something for fear they'll be denied or rejected. And that is part of what we see sometimes in terms of somebody not applying for an SBA loan, not applying for student debt forgiveness. And we want to remind people, if you don't apply, you certainly won't get it. And so again, I ask the leaders here to help us get the word out.
Education is very, obviously, components of that are very important, but we talked a lot about student loan and student debt and tuition, even trade schools. Like
that's right.
AI is not going to be able to fix your house. It's not going to be able to be a carpenter. It's not going to be able to be a cobbler. I think that the way you all talk about your administration have the verbiage you use in terms of finding a thing that you do, whether it's with your hand, your heart, being exposed to things and being able to learn a trade is just as important. Like college wasn't for me.
Yeah. I
have a GED for a reason. It didn't mean I wasn't bright or wasn't intrigued or didn't have passion. It just meant that there was a different pathway for me. Administrate from your perspective, there are pathways that you're building so people, if they want to go to trade school, if they want to learn.
IBW is represented here. They're doing an extraordinary job with their apprenticeship programs. I have visited many IBWs around the country. 4-year apprenticeship programs usually, where they actually pay the apprentice during those 4 years while they're learning, understanding that they're going to develop high levels of skills, but need to be able to get by through the process of learning those skills. I agree.
I don't care how rich you are. You're going to call a plumber one day. I don't care. Or a craftsman.
Or an
one day.
electrician.
Yeah.
Or, right.
And I think that's very important. I mean, I think that there has been a tendency for these things to play above people's heads, to the degree that they feel like they're not involved in the conversation.
That's
I know
right.
a lot of young black men I talk to feel as if they're not involved in the conversation.
That's right.
And I think that that's something that one of the reasons you're doing this tour
You're
is to
exactly
address the cynicism that they're not being involved,
That's right.
because we know that people, a fulfilled community starts with fulfilled leaders.
That's
and
right.
if they feel like no one's talking to them,
Yeah.
if they feel like nobody's addressing their concerns or their needs,
That's right.
that's going to be a problem.
And everybody wants to be seen as a full human being, right? And that's part of, in summary, a lot of what this tour is highlighting is the various things that we are doing to acknowledge the various dimensions of who we are, but in the context of economic opportunity, be it debt, be it home ownership, be it access to loans, be it access to counseling and the services that help people know how to start a business and keep a business. All of there's a method to the madness, if you will, which is truly about seeing a whole human being and understanding that when we give people opportunities, this is the beauty of human nature. When you set a high bar and give people the opportunity to jump for it, I've seen it throughout my career in life. People go for it every time.
Mm-hmm.
Every time. That's the beauty of human nature.
Yep.
You give people the ability to know that they have the resources to actually grab that thing. The beauty of human nature, people go for it.
It's invariably.
Right?
It's one of the. Somebody once said that you give information with a spoon and not a hammer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's
it
right.
has to be digestible. You have to understand
That's
it.
right.
And I think that things like this, being accessible, answering some of those
Right.
questions, addressing some of those concerns. Of course, you're going to do this a lot. But one, I'm glad to be here with you. I'm glad it's
you
warm.
are, DL. And I'm glad you got some steak last night.
I'm going to get some today, too.
Yeah.
And is weed legal? I'm just playing. Listen, here. You said steak. Let's every time I have a conversation, a chance to engage with you, I come away even a more fervent supporter.
Thank you.
I think what you're doing is only a tip of the iceberg in terms of what you're going to be able to accomplish. So thank you for allowing me to be here. Thank you for being here. Madam Vice President of the United States of America.